Please consent. All right, so let's kick off tonight's call. Mike, I sent you a question that someone sent in. A couple of things to unpack in that one question. So I think that may take up a lot of the time. Nude toddlers everywhere. Yeah, that's not the call for that. So what if you guys have breakthroughs tonight, right? What are we hashtagging in the chat, guys? Little memory jog. What's our hashtag? Just so you know, we are up to close to $3,000 for the month. Mental. Blue Wolf, you guys have got it. All right. So let's get into it tonight, all right? So the first thing that I wanted to, I feel like whenever we miss a call, it feels like it's been a month since we do it, right, Mike? Oh, hate that.
Always.
We never not love running these calls for you guys. So if ever we cancel, it's for a good reason. Always a good reason. So lots of conversations are happening around the markets right now. GU on that cheeky little 5-minute. Anyone see that? Anyone catch that? Anyone like shit the bed? I don't know. I know Kat did. She caught that. Good girl. But I wanted to first kick off this call with the subject around deeply held emotional beliefs around the trading mind. Okay. Now, who here? We're just going to riff on this, all right? Because one thing that I'm seeing all the time is I'm seeing conversations around, I'm doing my affirmations, I'm doing my journaling, but things still aren't really pulling through for you. So I want to propose an idea for you, okay? You can declare that you believe something. An example of that would be, I'm a disciplined trader. Who has that as an affirmation in their trading plan? Put a 1 in the chat if that's you. I am a disciplined trader. Okay. But it is your performance under stress that actually reveals your hidden beliefs that you have that drive how you then react to uncertainty found in trading. That is therefore then going to determine your success as a trader. Okay. And traders find no one's immune to it, right? There is a gap between, this isn't even just with trading, guys. This is everything. There is a gap between what you say and what you do. Okay. There's a gap. And we try to then convince ourselves that we are a disciplined trader. But when it comes to real money, we fall a bit short, okay? And the affirmations and the visualizations that we've been repeating to ourselves don't work because subconsciously you don't actually believe what you're saying, right? And your trading account does not lie. It actually reveals the beliefs that you then project onto the market. So this is the gap between what you believe about yourself and what is then revealed about what you actually truly believe by the health of your trading account, okay, by the state of your trading account. And the problem is that our trading accounts is not deceived by the ego's need to look good, okay? It's not. And we rarely, you rarely see the internal struggle that's going on. And what I mean by that is maybe you don't even believe there is an internal struggle because you're doing all the things. Who here can relate to that? You're doing all the things. So you think, no, it's not me. It's the strategy, right? So therefore you then lack success in trading. But we need to really understand, and I'm talking slower tonight because I really want this message to sink in. I want this to sink in. So if I talk slow, one, it's because I've been on this laptop since 8 a.m., but also, and your girl is tired. Mike and I think we spoke at like 7 a.m. this morning. Like it was early. We've been at it. So I'm going to talk slower tonight. One, because that is just my energy right now. But also I want this content to sink in. We need to understand that beliefs and emotions are deeply interconnected to the point that beliefs actually are a part of the emotion. Okay. And in trading, what you're actually experiencing are the deeply held beliefs that you hold about your capacity to manage challenging moments when the outcome is uncertain. And the reason I'm saying the outcome is uncertain is because in trading, the outcome is uncertain. So that is what I'm referencing. Okay. So then these are the beliefs that are, revealed by the health of your trading account, by the state of your trading account, by the amount that's in your trading account. And it may be that you actually don't even know what your beliefs are. You keep running into them in your trading, but you don't recognize them as deep-rooted operating beliefs. And this is the gap that needs to be closed. Okay. What you do is you just notice that you fall apart during emotional trading processes. Like, who's been in a trade and you just literally question your existence? I think we all have. Or maybe you're doing all the things and you just keep messing up despite doing all the things. So your surface beliefs, which is what you say about yourself when you're sitting in your trading chair, reading your affirmations, reading your trading plan, they do not align with your limbic beliefs, right? Your implicit beliefs about your capacity to manage uncertainty effectively. So for instance, if you don't follow your trading plan when the money is real, and what I mean by that is, how many times do we hear, I am really great on demo, I'm consistent on demo, but when I go live, I start losing money. Who does the shoe fit with anyone? Okay. So as an example, think of different situations in trading, but also in life, where you have problems in the process of what it is that you're doing, right? You may be experiencing your operating beliefs such as self-doubt, and maybe, you're on the charts and you're looking for, one more confirmation before you get in, doubt kicks in and then the trade runs away. You've completely missed it because you failed to pull the trigger. Okay. Or maybe you experience this, urgency to enter the trade to make things happen. So you trade impulsively, just constantly pulling the trigger. That was me. That's actually why I decided to go swing trading, because I was just trigger happy. I could literally scroll my MetaTrader. What's leverage? That was me. Okay. Or maybe you could take a loss or heaps of losses and you decide to revenge trade and get even, right? If these are situations that you have, what they reveal your hidden performance beliefs that's driving your trading, right? You're actually bringing an emotionally centered brain rather than a thinking brain to trading. Like, think about instincts, for example, right? Instincts are typically emotionally driven. They're emotionally based rather than thinking based. And it's in these limbic learnings that's rooted in your capacity to manage the challenges of just living that are driving you through all of these stressful situations like trading. Okay. But you're probably like, how the fuck does that apply to trading? I like a good caveman analogy. I think that was the call Mike missed, and I was waffling on about cavemen and our caveman brain for so long. Think about back in the day, right? A few weeks ago, I spoke about this. Say if I'm out hunting, if I win, I get to eat, right? If I lose, what am I? I'm the fucking meal, right? That's literally what it was like back then. So the ancient brain, guys, could not distinguish uncertainty from fear. So if we're out in the wild looking for food, and I came across, I don't know, like a fucking saber-toothed tiger, right? And this saber-toothed tiger squares me up and I'm about to fight it. Okay. Are you picturing me fighting a tiger right now? If I lost to the saber-toothed tiger, I lose my life. So think about this: performance, which is losing, and self, which is the loser, which meant of loss of life, were actually the same. Okay. So the performance of winning and being a winner became tied together. This is exactly the problem with an untrained brain and untrained mind in trading. You're bringing, unless you've done a whole heap of work on yourself, right? You're then bringing the ancient caveman brain with you every single time that you face uncertainty. You are literally priming yourself to deal with a saber-toothed tiger. Okay, even though there's no tigers in our trading environment, there's no tigers on TradingView, but it's the ancient emotional brain is incapable of knowing that. Fear, uncertainty. Okay. And what that does is that basically controls the quality of your perception. What that does, you experience emotional hijacking. That's what that does. So uncertainty and fear, they got glued together a very long time ago. So to find success, to find success as a trader, you're going to have to define them and separate them. Okay. You're then going to have to become the designer of your beliefs that you can then learn to bring, a level of certainty to yourself in an uncertain environment. Okay. So on the charts, we need to keep in mind that the emotional reaction is the response that you are having to your beliefs, and they're being projected onto the markets. They're not conscious. And that right there, that's the problem. Okay. And you are literally trading your belief systems, and things that come up, and write whatever in the chat saying me, if this is you. Okay. The beliefs that come up: inadequacy. You may be thinking, I'm not smart enough. I'm not good enough. I'm not going to get this. It's too hard, right? You may come from a proving I matter type belief. If I make a bunch of money by winning, people will like me. I'll prove that I'm really good. I'll prove that I matter, right? Money then becomes a representation of power and the ability to win. Okay. Maybe undeserving. If I don't work hard, I don't deserve to make easy money. What do we say all the time? Trading is the hardest way of making easy money. We say that every fucking week. Okay. And I think the undeserving one is actually like a bit of a worldwide phenomenon. Phenomenon. That's my word. I can't, I'm not even going to say it again. And what people do is they sabotage themselves as they start winning because of this underlying and hidden belief about self, right? 100% scarcity mindset. The undeserving one. Do you know how many times I hear about trade? The reason why I created my money course, guys, was because I was sick of hearing traders make bullshit money and blowing it all. You're not equipped to handle that amount of money, right? Scarcity, like, gee, if I risk, then what I have will be taken from me, is an underlying belief. And this is actually a belief that keeps people in dead-end jobs, shitty situations, shitty relationships, right? And then the other one that I would think would be powerlessness. And this is a big one. I'm sure the boot fucking fits on this. No matter what I do, I can't win consistently, SJ. Like, I'm following my trading plan. Powerlessness, right? The amateur trader, guys, listen to this. The amateur trader wants to win by controlling the outcome, right? The problem is you cannot control the outcome, which does that, which is what makes you powerless to trading. And I think the really important thing to remember here is dealing with all of these self-limiting beliefs is inescapable. You just get better at handling them. Okay. And what you guys need to do is stop trying to avoid them, because they're part of our human condition, right? And in trading, there is no way around it, because these beliefs have to be rebuilt so that the new mind, right, is then capable of dealing with uncertainty, and that can be developed. So your job as an evolving trader, as an aspiring trader, is literally to redesign the way that your brain, that way that your mind interacts with uncertainty. Because the old way, which was literally given to you by, I don't know, natural selection, we'll just call it that. I don't know if that's the right thing to call it, but it's never going to work in the world of trading. Your brain will never like being exposed to a lack of control over an outcome. It'll never like being, not being in control of uncertainty, randomness. Okay, this is literally the worst nightmare for an emotional brain, instinctive emotional brain. Okay, but Mike has talked about this a million times, literally neuroplasticity of your brain. You can become the designer of how your brain interacts with uncertainty. You can do that. You can rewire it. So I'd love to know, Mikey, how would you help someone uncover, work with the deeply held emotional beliefs that's literally ruling their trading mind?
Did you just say right there, reptilian mind?
No, I said a word wrong, but we can say
Oh,
that's what I said.
well, it's a very interesting conversation because it is something that, again, trading is just one of those things, guys, that naturally exposes, like other things to us. And one of those being, this exact conversation. One of the movies I just quickly recommend is Lucy, about this. If you haven't seen Lucy, watch Lucy. But when we're going through this entire process, of course, what I always like to call that this particular part of the conversation, I always forget the name of the brain, or the part of the brain, the amygdala, got it. The amygdala, fight or flight. Or what SJ, the term that she was using, the ancient brain. It is the primitive side of the mind. And that's where, like, sexual energy comes from. That's for where the primal, real earthy, gritty part of us are. There's that, and then there's the intellectual, there's the instinct, and then there's the intellect. Where the animal side of the brain is the reaction based, where something happens and you start reacting, chemical explosion inside of the brain, as opposed to the intellectual side that does not react, it responds. It interprets a situation and then gives an answer, as opposed to the animal side of the brain that just is whatever is happening in the immediate response. That's where the fight or flight, or backing an animal into the corner and they show their teeth kind of thing. Animals lack that capacity, except for, I guess, dolphins and a few others, to again have that distinction between that. And one of the things that helped me with that, outside of all of this, was Eastern philosophy. The ability of understanding what the path of least resistance is, and water flowing downhill and not uphill. It is so much easier, again, for us to worry about the outcome and trying to control it, because we feel, again, that it is easier. Just like what SJ was saying, it's natural for our brains to want to do that. And so when we don't get to, of course, control the outcome, it creates problems. And during what you kind of learn, or what I've learned personally through Eastern philosophy, is that the detachment of outcome is where so much of where everything we want comes from. Because then when we finally let go of, most importantly, pain, or again, obstacles or trauma or those kinds of things, we are no longer a slave to it. And one thing that definitely we can become a slave to, outside of even our own personal problems, is other people's expectations that you are weighing with a high priority. Like, how many of you guys are trading because you want to prove somebody wrong out of spite? And so you could develop this social pressure that I must win this trade because of a social pressure, or in a chat wanting to be right, or something like that, or social media. Again, other influences that, again, we care about, or that whole idea of, again, whether it's spite, or whether I want to prove to other people that it works, or this or that, and again, holding up to a certain level of expectation. And that doesn't happen in the heat of the moment of trading. That happens outside of it, that then influences what happens in the moment, because we are doing things potentially for, a handful of different reasons, outside of, again, just simply because I'm trying to win the trade and make money. It could be for, again, any other kind of social pressure or social confirmation, or again, proving other people wrong, or parents, or sibling, or partner, whatever. And so that's definitely a big issue that a lot of people face, especially just in our space because of social media. So many people compare themselves to other people's like highlight reels, which is what social media is. You don't see anything else other than what they want you to see. So when now again, to come back to the person and not looking at outside of outside of ourselves in that regard, when I like what SJ said just a second ago about how the brain is, well, at least that part of the brain is absolutely incapable of being comfortable with the fact of that we can't control what goes on, because everything that we come from in, of course, society doesn't just start with us having that brain. It is catered to. It is absolutely getting flooded with instant gratification, or that microwave mentality, or the expectations, and again, everything that we allow onto ourselves. And so I guess that's also not just from the person, but even again, not just looking at social expectations, but again, from everything and the indoctrination from movies and TV shows and other people and parents and wherever, of course, all of this stuff comes from. It again adds on to more of that. And I guess the easiest way that I always put it is that people think that you have to see it to believe it. And that is a lie, because you have to believe something first, then you can physically see it. It is the direct opposite of what it is that, of course, we have ever been taught. You do not, have something happen and then you're like, oh, okay, now it works. Oh, okay. That's not how, that's not how this physical reality works. When something happens, it's because of a decision that was made before it actually happens. If you wanted something bad enough before, you did not get it and then decide you wanted it. You wanted it, and then at some point you got it. That is, again, not seeing to believe, but believing to seeing. And learning that dichotomy of, we have always been taught traditionally everything ass backwards, and that we approach things usually from like the wrong side of the equation. Like we have the right equation, but we're doing it backwards and expecting to go straight to the destination or straight to the result without, again, figuring out the equation. And so when it comes to trading and what it is that, again, as we go through the process, it is one thing I always try to point out with the process is that where else in life have you ever, where has this ever happened? In such a clear red number or blue number, straight like gut punches to you, especially if it's like red numbers or numbers that, of course, you're not happy with. The brain doesn't naturally like, that's new information, because it's not just numbers, it's a reflection of us. It is new perceptions that we inevitably, of course, must face about ourselves: the greed, the euphoria, the doubt, the anxiety, the emotions. The emotions are the thing that I am always trying to teach people, that as crazy as this sounds, to become as robotic as possible. As in, if you allow yourself to feel extremely happy when you win, then you inadvertently allow yourself to feel very, very bad when you lose. You cannot feel one without the other. You cannot just get happy when you win and feel nothing when you lose. That's just not how we work. So what's the alternative? To me, at least what works for me, is that I do my best. Now, again, remember, I am a human being as well. Of course, I have emotions. Of course, like, what I'm about to say is not something that I or anybody can just 100% stick to, because, again, I'm not a machine. But that's the goal. That's what I'm always chasing for, is that if I get into a trade based off of the confirmations and everything that it is that got me into the trade, that's great. But once I'm into the trade, whatever is going to happen is whatever is going to happen. Now, again, that's where the human, where I can come in and start second guessing and, what this exact conversation is about. But that's where the detachment of outcome comes from. But my cheat code, the whole Eastern philosophy part, But then another thing is, of course, devaluing the value, the mental value of each trade. How do we make it to where, again, we're not so connected to the how do we make it so where we're not so attached to the outcome? We mentally devalue the importance of each trade, meaning even if it goes the wrong way, it's okay. What difference does it make? And for me, my brain has an easier time chewing on that. Instead of trying to figure out how to overcome it all, instead, my brain just goes to, well, how can I make it to where it's redundant? How can I make it to where it is just the same thing? It's just the same actions. Because if not, then it's like literally every day it's an emotional whiplash, and that I get into an emotional hurricane. To me, it's either I feel nothing or I feel everything. And I don't want to feel everything because, again, trading, of course, it does not always, of course, go your way. And so when it doesn't go your way, if you feel like exactly what is in context of this question, I empathize with the question, because please understand, I'm not trying to mitigate the, how severe and how important that is, because, again, we're human beings. I suffer from it too. I want you guys to be clear. This is what we should be striving for. This is what we are consistently, this is what takes practice. This is what takes, how much indoctrination do we have to undo in order to then stand on a new set of beliefs of what it is that we're doing here. And so, like, taking it back to SJ's caveman analogy is like, okay, so my brain is not thinking I either eat or die in this fight with the saber tooth. I devalue the fight with the saber tooth because the village already has a bunch of food. So what difference is this fight about to make? I could run from it. I could, I don't have to win, is really what I'm trying to say. I'm not putting myself in the end all be all situation mentally, because it's okay. And so, again, what I'm trying to say is that my brain, it's easier for me to let go. Once I get into a trade, win or lose, it's easier. It's easier for me to accept. It's easier for me to, obviously, again, want to win, right? I don't want to lose, of course, but regardless of the outcome, I'm ready to detach from that trade and repeat the process again. I'm ready to do it again. And that's what matters, is the repetition, because if you get stuck in the mud on each individual trade you're taking, then you slow down, and then it gets harder to get into trades. Then it's harder to execute the button. It's hard. You're moving slower. It's like, again, trying to walk through mud. It just gets harder and harder and harder and harder, because we are wrestling with so many things. But that's the good thing about trading, is that it reveals to you that you were trying to walk through mud, so you can stop walking through, metaphorical mud. I hope you understand. And when we start to, again, transition out of that, it definitely does take time. And how much time, it depends on each person. But to me, I guess just the way that I move through that is, I try to make it to where my mind understands this one trade means nothing in the bigger scheme. For me, it is so much easier to say, oh, okay, and then all of this responsibility, expectations, and programming, and all of these things just get off. And so then it's just it's about trying to, again, get it to as simple as truly, again, just hitting a blue button or hitting the red button, based off of what it is that I personally perceive in the markets. And if I'm wrong, that's okay. And that is absolutely, of course, the other thing as well, is that the brain doesn't, of course, not have ways of dealing with not knowing what the outcome is. Simply, guys, the brain doesn't want to be wrong either. And that's called ego. People just, again, simply wrestle with the idea of that I don't want to lose a trade, because what that also does is say, am I good enough? And then it creates a crack of doubt that then becomes a much bigger crack that could then become a canyon of self-sabotaging talk and questioning and going through that entire process. And all of that could be happening off, let's say 3 trades. Like 3 trades can create such a existential crisis for people when we're talking about doing this as a career, and so I guess for me, what also again helps with that is understanding how long you're going to be doing this. And that my brain is almost like, yo, Mike, you're tripping. Like, it's just the day, a year from now, this isn't going to be this again, just like this massive, it's just not as monumental. We're not sitting at some business table or like trying to make the deal of our lifetime, because the pressure of the trade of the lifetime, the trade, you see what I'm saying? Those moments in life where the stress level is up, the anxiety level is up, the pressure to perform level is up. You guys know what I'm talking about. By getting away from that, and however, of course, you decide to do it. I mean, this is again me speaking about what is always, or not always, but what has worked for me, and how, at least again, it seems to be easier for me to be able to say, I'm okay with this. I'm okay with this opportunity, and math, of course, because we have to assume risk management is also being followed here. Because on the other hand, this one trade could be this monumental trade if you're over leveraging. Now, I'm assuming, of course, that that's not happening, and that's why I didn't bring it up until just now. I should make that distinction clear, though. There is the way of trading to where you do risk 80% of your account, 100% of your account. Like if the market goes against you, you could just lose everything. That is absolutely not the way that, because that's just, of course, gambling. But I, of course, assume that that's not happening here. But to be clear, that absolutely is happening everywhere, at like all the time, because people don't want to, follow the rules of the math or any kind of discipline. They just, again, each trade is making or breaking them. When again, I'm talking about the exact opposite of making it so tiny, itsy bitty, to where your brain is like, it's almost like your brain doesn't care. Like, it's so easy because it's like your brain isn't going to sit there and worry about it. That's what, like, I'm trying to think of like another example in my life. Not an example, but just like another, like just a simple thing of where your brain, again, like there's a decision that needs to be made on like kind of the day by day life. Do I wear a black shirt or do I wear a white shirt? When you're standing in your closet, are you like tripping, having a crisis on what color shirt I should wear? Probably not, right? Because it's a decision that is not at a high value. So your brain, and so eventually you're just like, okay, I'll wear this one. Same thing with trading. If you understand what I'm trying to say, is that it should be not to the same decision of a black shirt or a white shirt, but again, so underwhelming that it should be then looking at it from all of these other crazy decisions that we have to make on a daily basis. And that's another thing to note as well. Think about what else is going on throughout the day to have that kind of clarity, because I always try to say that the brain, so to speak, has a gas tank, and that there is X amount of just mental clarity gasoline at for a certain time period. This is what sleep is for. Sleep is very important, by the way. If you guys aren't sleeping, start sleeping. Like, sleep is rest for the body.
I've never known you to sleep, so
yeah, definitely not me. But yeah, that whole toxic work culture and all that, we hopefully all understand all that. But the it's just like when you charge your phone, right? Your brain is the exact same way. And so you have to rest, because then you are simply better, or you're simply able to ascertain these problems and situations, especially in trading, a lot easier, as opposed to when you're just exhausted and you're just, like, and you're just barely keeping up, your eyes are half open, that kind of stuff. It's a lot easier to allow the emotional decisions to come in and that kind of stuff when that is happening. So, I mean, sleep's, it's just something important as well. But remembering kind of like that gas tank, if you've been dealing with massive, massive things all day, trading could be a release from that, because again, to devalue the importance of all of that. But then again, it might not. That just depends on each person, each individual in here. If you have the ability to be on and off, the idea of I need to always be on, the toxic work culture, all that kind of stuff is terrible. But we definitely, again, can pull that into trading as well. So you don't want to do that. You want trading to be not relaxing, but what would be not comforting per se, but you want the experience of trading to be something that you are not ending up after you've been trading. You don't want to have to force yourself. You don't want to have to make it to where I'm that there's, again, like so much like mental wrestling that you have to do. How many of you guys like curse all the time, but then when you're like around children or whatever, you have to like add another layer in your brain to like watch what you're saying? And so okay, actually y'all are Australians, so that will not work. So
don't put me around your kids. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, something like that, where you have to like put on airs or act a different way, and your brain, like you were literally using brain power to, this is how you are, but this is how you have to be at a certain situation. And that requires, like mental thought, right? I don't know if you guys understand what I'm trying to say. Mm-hmm. When you are not being a different, well, I guess you are being a different person for, again, like maybe cussing or whatever, right? And so again, something like that requires that mental effort, the effort for that. You don't want trading to be that. That's what I'm trying to say. You don't want to create this dichotomy of where you are having to consistently try to do this as a different version of yourself, because the version of yourself right now that you're scared of. If you're scared of yourself and therefore try to act a different way when you're trading, is where problems can happen. So you want trading to be, as, again, not like comfortable is not, maybe comfortable is the right word. You want to be comfortable, like in your own skin, so to speak, when you're trading and not having to do all of these other things. And that takes time to get to it. Maybe you do have to act like a different person, especially in the beginning, so to speak, because you're working on that and developing it. But the goal, again, is to get to that point to where it is just as much, trading becomes just as much a part of you as, again, selecting what clothes you're going to wear that day. As opposed to, oh no, I'm about to like sit down at the table with a $500 million CEO or something, and I'm stressed out and I'm nervous and all that other stuff. That's where a lot of catastrophe can happen. This is where a lot of clarity can happen. But you got to work at that part. And the self-defeating talk, all of that, that's why you got to plug into the other things that SJ does all the time. And the way that she talks about and all of that, because guys, you can figure out how to trade. You can learn how to discipline yourself to following this plan. But again, even if you do figure out trading and you do start making money, but then you start losing, or like not losing, but just spending it or blowing it. And then it's almost like trading is doing nothing for you, because just as much as you're making it, you're spending it on things that don't matter. That could also then create more pressure to start trading in a different way, to then start having a different type of result, because now you're trying to match your lifestyle with this new income that is coming in, making this all worse. And then we go back to square one of doing, here we are all over again. So learning more, again, not just about how to make it, but how to maintain it and how to, again, grow it, not just from the markets, not just to grow money from the markets, but to grow it in general, or other things that, again, in the money course that you guys need to learn from, because again, stuff like that makes trading easier. That's what I think the entire conversation is. Ask you, right, like at the top of your notes or whatever, guys, how do I make trading easier for myself? And this is not a mystery. Every individual should know what to do. Like, take a big deep breath, calm the hell down. Like, how do we make this like not easy, mentally easier? How do we make it to where it's not just this biggest thing in the world, and that it's very easy to digest, and that the brain is okay? We accept whatever a trade opportunity comes, we get into the trade, we accept the outcome, and then we do that again and do it again and do it again, instead of hold on to everything, question everything, go into an existential crisis and wonder, am I a failure? Have I been a failure my entire life? Is this, and I mean, going down that whole process that I know all of us have been through. Go ahead, SJ.
I think there is there will always be an emotional response to uncertainty. You just get better at managing it in trading, because trading is just trading. But when you think about the primitive primitive programming of our brain, that's literally, there will be emotional responses to it, but it's how you do that. And there's a question: how do you become the designer of what you create in terms of emotion responses to uncertainty? First, for me, and Mark may have something to say about this, but my take on this would be, first comes the regulation of the current emotional response to uncertainty. After that, then comes the isolation, or isolating, I should say. You've got to isolate the performance beliefs that drive the emotional reaction to uncertainty. Okay. You have to face those beliefs, like Mike said before, scared of yourself, scared of whatever. You have to face those beliefs and then master them. And that's not an easy thing. Okay. But it is essential. It's an essential element in redesigning the mind for the challenges that trading brings. Okay. Ultimately, the emotions of discipline, which is, what is discipline, guys? Have you even defined discipline? Let's define that in the chat. What is discipline? Write that out. We'll get to your chat in a sec. Chiara, can you copy paste that in case it gets discipline, self-love? Okay. But the textbook definition, okay, it's literally maintaining order under pressure, right? Discipline. Okay. I think that's the textbook definition. And then, thinking clearly when challenged would also come into it. All of that are essential emotions. So discipline, impartiality, right? All of that are essential, that need to be summoned from the friggin', I don't know, mind lords to create whatever we need to be able to control ourselves and engage in uncertainty. Okay. The old brain's response to uncertainty will not work, and you can check your trading account for that confirmation. Okay. It is here that you control the one thing required to create success in trading. And that is where you learn to control your mind that engages in uncertainty in the markets. Okay. This is the psychological edge that is going to drive your trading method, right? You on the charts. The real question, though, that you need to ask is whether you are willing to challenge yourself and disrupt the familiar pattern that dominates the way that you instinctively engage with your emotions. Are you willing to willfully step out of your comfort zone that is then required of you to then build a new way of engaging with even uncertainty of probability? Because that's all trading is. Okay, because human instincts are driven to control the outcome, which is basically winning and not losing, both of which you as a trader have absolutely zero control over. But the trader does have control over one really important thing, and that is the mind in which you decide to bring to the charts, right? Evolution literally gave us a mind that cannot separate uncertainty from fear. Okay, we've got that. But we as humans, we can redesign how our mind then responds to uncertainty, responds to winning, responds to losing. Okay, because the winning mindset is very different than the one that is, that's taught, right? You do not visualize making a winning trade. Instead, you need to focus on performing. What do we always say? Instead of being outcome focused, you need to be performance focused, right? The winning trading mind that engages with uncertainty is not going to be the one that's focused on performance, right? This is where your psychological edge is really found. You've got to let go of what you cannot control. Let go of that. Stop trying to force it. Stop trying to be right. And embrace what you can control, which is performing in the moment. That's what you can control, because human survival instincts are literally driven to control the outcomes, which you have no control over. Okay, no control. Winning, I think I love like the saying that winning is a state of mind. It doesn't mean you win the trade. It means, did you win? Can you win your performance? Can you do the things that you need to do, whether you're right or wrong, right? You're landing on one side of probability. That's all it is. That's all it is. So let's move on to the question. This is a great question. I know you'll all appreciate this one. Mackie, this is the one I texted you. SJ, Mike, I don't know what's wrong with me. Love this. Great question. Technically, I know how to trade. I know what to do. In simulation, I can pretty much print money. The problem is I do not do what I'm supposed to do when the money is real. I don't follow my rules. Instead, something possesses me and I do stupid shit. Only I don't know what I'm doing until the smoke clears. What could have been a promising day turns red and I give back everything and more. What's wrong with me? I'm going to go first because Michael finished with an absolute banger. So here's the thing. Here's a bit of a shift in thinking, right? Moving from instinct-driven behavior based on illusion of control, shifting that to a probability-based world, which is where we are in trading. Okay. I have this conversation with so many of you every single week, right? A trader, you guys think your problems are unique, but this is not unique, right? This is a very common problem that all, evolving and aspiring traders have. Okay. And I'm going to talk about it again. The brain on uncertainty. So in my opinion, the answer to the question of what's wrong with me is that nothing is wrong with you. You are normal. Your brain is literally reacting to uncertainty that is then fueled by risk. Your brain is literally fucking doing what it's supposed to be doing. Okay? Like, can we laugh about that, please? Your brain is literally doing what it's supposed to be doing. The problem is that he is asking his brain to do something that is, diametrically opposite to what it is doing. It's being comfortable, while acting in the face of uncertainty, while there's tangible risk on the line. In the question, he says, something possesses me and I do stupid shit. Something has possessed this trader's mind under stressful conditions and has caused him to throw his rules and his trading plan out the window in this, instinctive nature of our, amygdala, our limbic brain, right? It is the brain that we share our most distant prehistoric shit before the modern thinking brain developed, right? That's where this comes from. It's also the brain that we share with other, social mammalians. Mammalians? Is that a word? Confirm that, someone. Mammalians. It's a word tonight. So out of all of that, humans can get quite arrogant and come to believe that thinking is separate from emotion. Okay, this is pretty short-sighted. I think that's a pretty short-sighted flaw in perception, because the emotional brain has, enormous power over the thinking brain. And that very power causes you to throw out your trading plan, not follow your trading rules, when you then engage with uncertainty with risk, meaning money. Okay. Your brain was designed to control the outcome, to be right, to keep you safe. That's what it's designed for. So every time you cannot control an outcome and not be right, and your predictions in the market are not right, this ancient, fight or flight that Mike was just talking about response is then triggered by your emotional brain. And because it then has the capacity to overwhelm the thinking brain, right? The emotional brain's response to loss, loss of control, then leads to instinctual primitive responses to threat, which is threat of your capital. Okay. And it does that either by triggering fear in all of its forms, okay, aggression, revenge trading, making up for losses, stacking positions, right? It's literally a hardwired response that's waiting there. It's sitting there at the back of your brain that's saying, fucking trigger me. Go on. I dare you. That's what it's doing. That's what it's doing in your brain. The thinking brain, it's hijacked before it even gets the message, basically. So if you hold this is what kind of, think about the implications of this, right? If you hold an expectation of making money today, being right about a trade, or being able to, predict what the market is going to do, you're literally asking your brain to do something it can't control. So then what happens if you keep subjecting yourself to control over something that clearly you cannot control? What do you think happens? Your limbic brain, your emotional brain, is learning that it is a failure at controlling you, right? It is failing you at controlling engagements with uncertainty. So what does it do then? It then becomes overreactive, and you start freaking out, and you start doing stupid things like not following your trading plan, not following your rules, adding positions, moving your stop losses, things like that, right? This is where Mike said it before. Everyone sit back for a second, sit up straight. Close your eyes, take a big, deep, big belly breath. Do you guys actually ever focus on your breath? This breath is life, right? This is where when you become like this on the charts, you need to stop for a second and you need to breathe. Incredible big breaths in. Do 10 if you want. I have a breathing ritual before trading. Okay. This is when you are faced with things of uncertainty, stressful situations, this is actually where you must learn how to breathe differently. Okay. Breathing is actually part of an emotion. In fight and flight responses to, different types of stresses, your breathing is either going to be shallow or it's going to be fast, or you hold your breath. My partner holds his breath, and then you hear this. I'm like, can you fucking just breathe normally, please? You either hold your breath, it gets quicker, or you slow it right down. Okay. This is the breathing style that you need to place that you need to have in place to activate that fight or flight response. Okay. If you were to train yourself to begin breathing diaphragmatically, diaphragmically, don't know, which is literally breathing calmly, relaxed, your mind is patient. And then as you enter a stressful situation, you may be looking at a chart and be like, oh, I'm looking at a chart right now. That's not stressful. But when it comes to the moment of entering a trade, missing a trade, it actually is. It does something. Something is triggered. Okay. You won't be able to gain enough control to strengthen that to strengthen the overcoming of that hijacking. Okay. It may even pay you. Try this next time you're trading. Wear a heart monitor. Like if you have a smartwatch, check your pulse. If you're feeling stressed on the charts, look at a clock, get a timer, and count your pulse. See how many heartbeats you have, right? Use a mirror. Sounds ridiculous, but a mirror in front of you. And when you're looking at the charts and you may feel stressed, check your breathing. You can see it. You're either going to be in the chest or your belly, right? You will see the associated muscle tension in your face, guys, and the body that aligns itself with the emotional breathing of patterns of fight or flight. So you can basically learn how to, regain emotional control just through breathing, right? But understand this: managing the intensity of the emotion that you feel when trading, so that it does not control or does not take control of the rational mind, does not solve the problems you have to become a successful trader. Okay. But if you do not control this aspect of your emotional nature, you're never even going to get into the door of the mind won't even be cracked. Right? In that door, I'm literally picturing like a door fucking cracking in my mind right now. In there is where you will find the self-limiting beliefs that is driving your performance under the stress of trading. That is then reflected back into your trading account. The first thing is to regulate the emotion so it does not hijack you. And you do that through breathing. That's my biggest tip for that. So there's nothing wrong with you to start with. Your brain is doing what it's supposed to do. Mike, unpack this.
You've certainly been doing it. Breathing is the fuel to the body, oxygen. There's no oxygen going to your brain. That's how you die when you drown. It's if there's no oxygen that's going to your brain, that's how your brain shuts down. It's like the same thing when people are like scuba diving. They can't just rapidly ascend because of I forget what it's called. It's like why they can't do that, because of the difference in level and stuff, and then of course like the oxygen that they're using. But it's called something in scuba diving, like it's a big deal. I forget what it's called, but it is it's just like what anxiety does is that, yes, it increases your heart rate and slows down your oxygen intake. And so when you're simply holding your breath, I think like in your chest is the best way to put it. It's like putting a chokehold on the entire machine itself, but you're still expecting the machine to operate at its maximum potential when the machine isn't getting what it's supposed to be getting. That's why cars have intakes. They have to intake oxygen to create the combustion in the engines and stuff. If you cut off the intake, it'll stop working. It's the same thing with the brain. That is a huge thing that a lot of people don't know. Don't breathe just to survive. You breathe with intention. It's a massive, internal difference. And so thinking about breathing is important. But when you say in the question, when it says possessed, no, you're just being possessed by what has always been in possession or what's in the driver's seat. And specifically in context of that question, it's the dichotomy with demo money and real money. If you were practicing in a way to where you know that the money is not real, therefore you operate in such a way that practice is not practice. It's like you're doing something completely different at that point. So if you were trading and you know that it's a demo account, and again, going back to the primitive brain part, you're safe. You're safe. because there's no risk. So I could just do whatever. And then of course, with that, it is so easy to print money, just like what it says in context of the question. But then we step over to something else, and then it becomes an entirely different situation. You want to get live trading to that mindset of demo trading. How safe and how easy it is that you feel when it is to demo trade is the secret. That's what you're trying to get to. And how do you do that is everything that we've been talking about, is that the possession what takes over the person is not some existential force. It is us. It is the anxiety. There's always one or the other in the driver's seat at any given time. And just like what SJ said, the emotional side can absolutely take over. If you don't know what I'm talking about, okay, well, here's a easier human example. When you're horny, what is it that you think about? What is it that takes over? It's the same. It comes because that comes from the same part of the brain, and that it immediately you stop thinking about things, and then you want to start feeling things. You want to feel versus think. And again, just as much as like the sexual desire and like that way, of course, we're all adults. We know what that feels like. We know when it starts boiling up. It's the same thing with an emotional response when it comes to trading or the attachment to the outcome. It starts, and then it starts pushing its way to the surface, and then it just hits you like an avalanche. And then we start trying to manage through the chaos as opposed to just walking the path that we know that we should be walking. We do fall off the path all the time. It's not about how do I stop falling off the path? It's about how do I get back on as easily as I can. That's where you're not going to beat or control your emotions. That's crazy. But what you can control is, again, oh, I'm off that path, so to speak, and now I'm trying to manage chaos. There's an addiction to that. It's an addiction to pain. It's an addiction to the excuse of there's so much going on. There's so much of this and so much of that. And so it's easier for the brain to, again, decide that that's what the problem is, as opposed to what we know what the issue is. It says literally in the question, hold on, let me read it. I know what to do, period. We know what to do, but then we start, again, adding on all of these other things that make it to where there's the scapegoat. There's the thing that is going on, and the lack of assumption of responsibility. And I'm not saying whoever is questioning that is that you're not taking responsibility, because here you are trying to take responsibility. So it's not demeaning what it is I'm talking about in the moment. When we go to chaos and then all hell breaks loose, again, it is so much easier to say, well, chaos happened to me. I didn't create the chaos, but you did. And there is a fine distinction between that of again, allowing things to happen and then trying to deal with it. Maybe because, again, that's what feels natural. Maybe you've always had to deal with chaos, and that you feel, again, that it's easier to operate, or not easier, but it's what's known. It's what's comfortable. It's what makes sense to you. Well, in trading, instead of doing that, trying something different, which, yes, feels uncomfortable. It feels different. It's not known. It is unknown. It is, again, doing everything you can to avoid all of that in the first place preemptively. And so we know what to do, but we, again, in the heat of the moment is again something that is so I love that because in the heat of the moment is honestly when that's the only time when things matter. In the heat of the moment, when you make it this decision or that decision, is what defines human beings. All of the other time is when we're not, forced to make, and not just in trading, like in general. Do I watch TV or do I get on Go Live? Your life changes based off what decision you make. Do I sleep for another hour or do I get up and do what I'm supposed to do? Your life changes based off of what decision in the heat of the moment that you make. And so again, in trading, it's the same thing. How to preemptively avoid all of that is, or not avoid all of it, but to start to work on it is, again, understanding that if it happens consistently, that it should then be, again, a clarity thing, that I absolutely have the capability of, again, walking right into chaos and dealing with all of this all over again. Because again, why? I've done this how many times in the past? What have you learned from those experiences and the pain in order to stop doing that? If we walk into, and I'm not saying to pull the weight over from any of your previous trades, the experience, however, the understanding, or the, again, the experience that is gained from it should then, especially with this particular bit, change the way that, again, we approach trading, in the sense of, how do I avoid that? Well, how do we avoid it is, again, what this whole conversation has been about. Dropping down the priority level of each individual trade, making it to where it's a lot easier, making sure that, again, that the primitive side of the brain isn't the one in control. Again, everything that we've been talking about are just some things. But what's also be clear here, as grown adults, everyone, I can't answer that question for you. I am not you. I don't know what you struggle with. I don't know what has happened to you that is, again, conducting or creating this behavior, because it's something with all of us, something somewhere, but nobody can answer that for you but you. Because if you were, again, being intellectually honest with yourself, you're the only person that can, dive into your memory and pinpoint where that comes from, because it comes from something. So again, these are practices and things that can absolutely be helpful. But again, as grown adults, everyone, there is not just some golden thing that you're going to hear that's going to fix you. You have to fix you. All we can ever do is show you the door with things that have helped me, with my personal experience, with, things that we have learned, everything that we've been talking about. But maybe everything we've talked about today isn't helping you, because maybe that's not what you need to hear. You are the only person that needs to know what you need to hear. And the idea that you don't, to me, guys, is crazy. To me, as much as, again, I know, I empathize with it, because I'm a human being as well. Why is everything going wrong? Why? But then when I'm out of that toxic, self-defeating mental conversation, I then am like, no, I know what's going on. When I have the clarity to then look at it in hindsight, when I have the clarity to look at it from a different version of me, and that's why people say hindsight is 2020, right? Because we can easily identify what did it. And if it is something that is a pattern and it is happening over and over and over and over, great. If you can identify the pattern, then by moving forward, you as an individual on your particular trading plan, on your particular approach, that needs to be the thing that needs to be completely understood. And that's where I said that you might have to walk a certain way, but then get to the point to where you're not, acting a certain way versus who you are, because who we are is the problem right now, right? We have to start acting in a certain way, but the goal is to, again, make that to where, again, we're operating from that way. But we, again, have to understand we're not there yet. Mm-hmm. And that there's a process, there is a growth that we have to go through. So the fact that you can acknowledge, even this question, the fact that you can acknowledge it is great. As much as, again, it feels bad wrestling with the problem. What about if you had, again, you have convinced yourself, I have no idea what the hell's going on. Then there's nothing that you feel like you can do about it. But if you can, again, identify what it is, be grateful with that, because now it's no longer a mystery. Now it's a choice. Now it's a choice that you have control over. Do I do something about it, or do I continue to reciprocate the exact same behavior? And a lot of the times we continue to reciprocate the same behavior because it's comfortable and because it's known, and it's because we potentially have always done it our entire lives. But that is, again, what the entire essence of learning to trade is. Learning to trade is not just, again, learning how to literally trade. If you want to become a trader versus somebody who just looks at charts and hits the blue button or the red button, that's the difference. The philosophical beliefs, the difference in approach, the difference in the change, and the price that a person has made in order to change who they are. Because if we didn't have to do this, then we would already be there. So therefore, it should be easy to recognize that this is that. If you are consistently not acting the way that you are supposed to in the heat of the moment, there is a reason for that. And that the next time you're in the moment, the intellectual brain then can overpower the emotional side of, I am so sick and tired of doing this over and over and over and over. And I am forcing myself to do things in a different way. And again, that's hard because forcing is not, it's resistance to it, but you do need to create resistance to the toxic behavior. You have to create resistance to the things that we are comfortable with, to the things that we are perfectly miserable complaining and dealing with, because we all are in all of our own, in all of our own ways. So the continuous effort of just trying to be as clear as possible with that, have math do a lot of the work for you, risk management, following the plan, and making it easier. Remember, devaluing the importance of each individual trade. These are all these things that, again, need to come together. But again, these are just practices. These calls are not about, I'm going to get on this Zoom call tonight because Mike and SJ are going to change my entire life. I can't change your life. No one can. This is a self-discovery mission of realizing why we even need to be saved in the first place. And that the moment we understand again why we're even in the situation, then creates the ladder or the rope, so to speak, that we start to climb, because we created the hole that we dug ourselves into. We can also create the escape route. And so the escape route is, again, something that needs to be created. But that process, remember, guys, it's hard. So you also, again, just need to watch that. And by the way, that question that was in the chat from me earlier. Huh?
Sorry, nothing. I just said something and I realized it was really inappropriate.
Oh, yeah. SJ did that? What? That's crazy.
Jason was rubbing his head like this, and I was like, oh, he's rubbing the dome.
Oh my Lord. Oh, I see. He's about to explode. Oh my God. You see? Here we are. We made it, everyone. But no, to answer that question, no, at the beginning of my trading, no, the noise and all of that was absolutely there. But that was something that I covered a little bit ago, where I cut out the social expectation and all of that. So another thing, I don't add to that by just showing off my trading results. So I don't also perpetuate that behavior as well. I don't do that because it's something that, again, feeds that idea of me versus you in terms of results, which is toxic. Now, does that mean like don't go into the chats and hide from the world and live under a rock? No, because you have to have, because, well, most importantly, whether you're in a chat or whatever, there's no escaping it. You're not going to change any of that. It's about how you interpret it and how you deal with it. So by, again, making that practice of, to me, the way I did it is that trading is personal. Trading is very, very intimate. Trading is a very personal experience. I don't need to go around, shouting at the rooftops, look at me with my trading results. Because some people like to do that, and that they feel good and get a dopamine injection when they're praised for doing what it is that they're supposed to be doing. no one's appraisal of me is worth more than the appraisal of me to me. I care more about what my opinions are of myself as opposed to what other people's opinions are of myself. I'm not trying to, and I'm not saying anybody here is doing that, but most times that's what social media is that I care more about what I am interpreting versus me looking for, again, Mike, you're so good. No, I like Mike, you're so bad. Mike, you're so good. I cut that. I've never, in fact, if anything, I've never cared about that ever. And maybe that's been a little bit of mine, but I used to like make fun of people who would just like, let me take a selfie and like post it on social media. I used to make fun of people mentally that would do that because it's just that the not narcissism of it, but I don't like, I guess ego, but it's not that ego is a bad thing in all senses of the word, but specifically with this, some people might do that, or on the other hand, compare themselves, their opinions to other people's results, which is the same thing, but it's flipping it, meaning that you are again gauging yourself off other people. You're not looking for confirmation, you are confirming to yourself off of other people. It's reverse, which is also just as bad. So no, I definitely do cut out the noise in a lot of ways, but that doesn't mean that I don't see what goes on, because at the end of the day, I can't escape that. So to me, I'm happy for when people make a bunch of money, and I only want to help people that lose money. But whatever happens, it's not going to come into my world, my intimate trading, and then start to influence what goes on. That's what I'm saying. I cut it out at the intimate level, not in the exterior. This is what's going on in the space level, because it's there, and I have to interact with it, and I'm okay with it, because again, I have created that barrier of me and what I'm doing. Could give a shit less about what anybody else is doing or what anybody else thinks. So
Powerful, gang-a-lang. You've got a couple more minutes to get in some Blue Wolf breakthroughs. I did, if you scroll up, if you missed out on the checklist, self-awareness checklist, if you're in Tradehouse Oz, it's in the trading resources. I created this a long time ago. This is something that you should print out, refer to probably every quarter of the year. Every single time you're having a little of a blimpy bloop bloop moment in trading, refer back to this. Powerful questions. Everything tonight was literally self-awareness. It is the key. It is the key. Any other questions, guys? So grab that checklist, scroll up, PDF, share it around. I'll find you and I'll kill you. Just kidding. Any other questions for Mike and I before we wrap it up?
The new Lorna Shore song is amazing, by the way, for any of you guys that might listen to that band.
Might listen to it on my morning walk.
Well, Lorna, if you don't know who Lorna Shore is, it's
awesome. Cool.
It is an extremely heavy death metal band. But the new vocalist they got is literally reinventing the entire genre. They're number one right now.
Interesting. All right, write that down. Guys, anything else? Wet paper towel. Oh, we're talking about onions. Okay. we can close we can close out. Guys, thank you so much. Mikey, thank you for all of you today. We've had some great chats and a great call. Everyone, I appreciate you all, as does Mike.
Yep. Always with the time, guys. I appreciate your desire to change, not me being here, y'all being here, your desire to have things different. So you could just as much be like, no, all this is too hard, I'm gonna go watch TV.
100%. It might be Jenna and Mike next week. I'll be traveling down to Brisbane, and I'm leaving in the afternoon, so I'm probably not going to be finished driving. So if I am not available, Jenna and Mike, Jenna in the chat, when was I notified? Now.
Let's do it, Jenna. What? Gang,
Yes,
gang.
I'm seeing you at my hens party. Of course, I'm seeing you. I'm just driving to Brisbane to drop my mum off. So yes, Jenna and Mike next week, gang, gang. I'm just going to call it, organize it now. Same link, same time. Be there. Bring your questions. And have a beautiful week, everyone. Thank you, Mike. Go the fuck to bed. And I'm going to stop recording.